Hey everybody, it's Captain C.A. Richardson here with another Flats Class YouTube video. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the chatterbait and how you can make this popular freshwater lure work for you in the salty stuff. Stay tuned. Now let's talk about the delivery system. For me, and in salt water, unlike freshwater, because we're targeting black drum, flounder, redfish, snook. These are just some of the species that you can catch on a chatterbait. I like a medium heavy fast action rod. Now most of the rods that I use are a little more parabolic, but these rods don't bend quite as easily at the tip. See, when you're throwing the saltwater chatterbait, you're usually throwing a little bit bulkier baits. And unlike bass fishing, where you're trying to feed them and load the rod up, you've got to drive this heavy-duty hook through the mouth of a redfish or a flounder, where you've got to give them a little time to eat it, but you still got to set the hook. So I'm finding the Clearwater series Falcon rods in the casting style, the 6'10" medium heavy fast works really well. Or in the spinning Clearwater rods at Falcon, you'll find the 7'4" medium heavy action works extremely well. Now, you can see that I'm here at the lodge at Cajun Fishing Adventures, and we've been catching a lot of redfish and an awful lot of black drum on the chatterbait. And I'm about to show you some of the trailers that we're using that's going to make a big difference for you when you start targeting saltwater fish with a freshwater bait. So the chatterbait. When do I use it? That's one of the big questions everyone has. When would I possibly use this? Well, when I'm fishing grass or I'm fishing days that have clouds and wind, this is a fantastic bait. In the summertime, when we get lots of rainfall, this is a bait that can draw fish in that typically would not see a swim jig. Remember, the chatterbait's called the chatterbait for a reason. It talks to the fish. And that stainless blade vibrates and flashes, and it's a combination of a spoon, a swim jig, and a spinnerbait all in one. Now, this is the minnow profile. I also have the crustacean profile that I like a lot here, and I've got the jerk shrimps rigged on this one. And I hop it with this particular rig, where I swim it with the diesel minnows. But this basically just hops right there along the bottom, flashes and drops, flashes and drops. And if you're fishing docks, fishing around oyster bars and mangrove shorelines, that is a fantastic combination. In addition to the jerk shrimps, which is an excellent bait that you'd like to use with this because it gets down deep, there's not a lot of bulk to it, don't overlook the simple baits, like the scented curly tails. Works excellent for slow hopping around docks and mangrove shorelines. I use this quite a bit when I'm working the bait slower. Now, if I'm just swimming it, I'm trying to swim it over deeper grass or just cover some water, the swim and trout tricks is hard to beat. The profile in the swim and trout tricks is very slim. It doesn't create a lot of resistance, and if I roll the bait really slow, I can get the bait deeper. When I need to work it over some shallower grass or over oyster bars, I'll use the 4-inch diesel minnows. That's where I start. If that doesn't get the job done, I'll move up to the 5-inch diesel minnows and get good results. So, in closing, I know there's one more question that you really want to ask, and this is why you're going to do it. Stand by. And that question is, why would I use a chatterbait instead of, or opposed to, a spinnerbait? Well, let me tell you. Spinnerbaits do not work through grass very easily, not the way that a chatterbait does. A chatterbait really deflects grass well. And when you're fishing out here in Louisiana where I am right now, or even if I'm fishing some of the beautiful grass prairies around the Nature Coast where I live, the chatterbait does a great job. See, the spinnerbait requires you to crank it fast enough to get that lift on those blades. It's a bulkier bait to throw, so it hits the water harder, and oftentimes the fish strike the blade instead of the jig itself. With the chatterbait, that never happens, and the chatterbait is really built for catching big fish. It's tougher with a spinnerbait. I've used spinnerbaits in the past and they get tangled like a pretzel after 2 or 3 redfish. Not the chatterbait. It's very well built. Z-Man has done a fantastic job with the diesel chatterbait. Now you can step up and buy the jackhammer really up, or you can use the Elite or the Project Z chatterbaits and they work just as well. But the diesel chatterbait does a great job and it's very, very affordable. The next time you're out looking for a great dirty water bait, low light scenario bait, don't underestimate the power of the chatterbait. It talks to the fish, brings them in from a great distance. And I think you too will find that you'll catch redfish, black drum, flounder, and even snook. I use this bait everywhere from the Everglades to Northeast Florida, all the way out here to Louisiana and along the Nature Coast, and do very well with it. Looking for something different, something that catches a lot of fish? Try the chatterbait.